It's not on you.
Webinar is being recorded.
Oh, fantastic. Karen, stop swearing. Um, Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Christopher Biss Brown. I curate the Free Library's Children's Literature Research Collection, and I am joined by my colleague and, more importantly, my friend, Karen Sooney, who curates our theater collection, but also is the curator for the current exhibition at Parkway Central, which is We Are What We Eat. Karen, can I have you say a few words about We Are What We Eat?
Sure, absolutely. So this is, as you can see, the dates of the show. It is in the Dietrich Gallery, which is in the third floor in the rare book department at Parkway Central. And it's really about how food, as you might imagine from We Are What We Eat, about how food creates connections and expresses relationships. So very much in the idea of like how it connects us to the past, how it connects us to each other, how it connects us to ourselves and to the environment. And then through that, that's done through the use of all of these materials from the various library special collections. So it really brings a lot of what we have sort of under one umbrella of food, which feels very universal. And so has a lot of ways that people can talk about it and experience it, both in terms of curation and in terms of people coming and viewing the materials.
Awesome. We hope that you all get a chance to come in and see it. Before we get into the meat and potatoes food reference of the exhibition, or excuse me, of the presentation, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. The exhibition is housed at the Free Library of Philadelphia. Our mission is to advance literacy, guide learning, and inspire curiosity. The library's vision is to build an enlightened community devoted to lifelong learning. We have 55 locations across the city of Philadelphia. You can find us online at freelibrary.org. And if you are a citizen of Pennsylvania, or if you own property in Philadelphia, or if you pay Philadelphia city tax, you are eligible for a library card for free. Unfortunately, at this time, cards are not available if you fall outside of those perimeters. However, you do not need a library card to access materials in our special collections. Special collections enhance the Free Library of Philadelphia's educational mission by curating and making accessible historical materials, providing reliable and knowledgeable staff assistance, and offering instructional programs that encourage learning and critical thinking. Most of our special collections are based out of Parkway Central, which you can see pictured there. And they include the Children's Literature Research Collection, which we'll talk about in a moment, the Fleischer Collection of Orchestral Music, which encompasses scores for orchestras. They have two sub-collections, which are the Chamber Music Collection and the Drinker Collection of Choral Music. We have a map collection where you'll find over 100,000 current and historical maps that cover every part of the world and parts of the world that don't exist as well. There is a great fantasy map collection that exists there. But the emphasis is on Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. There's some great things you can trace the history of the region over the past several decades. Our print and picture collection is home to a variety of graphic materials, including fine art prints, photographs, drawings, artist books, and it has a really impressive Philadelphiana collection, which contains over 20,000 images of Philadelphia, both historical but also some modern stuff. Our rare book department is one of the largest and the most diverse collections in a public library, and its holdings represent the history of written communication from all the way ancient world all the way to the present day. And I feel weird summarizing the theater collection because Karen is the theater collection. So I'm going to let you kind of give your 3-sentence elevator speech about what you do.
Absolutely. So the theater collection focuses heavily on Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, but it extends far beyond that. In addition to theater, as you might expect, it also covers film, television, vaudeville, burlesque, circus, puppetry, sort of popular entertainments of a lot of different kinds with materials dating from the mid 1700s up to today. We continue to collect materials of shows that are being produced now.
Thank you. And I skipped over the Children's Literature Research Collection because that's mine, so I get to give it its own slide. The Children's Literature Research Collection is one of the premier centers for the study of children's literature in the US. The collection houses a repository of over 85,000 works of children's literature, as well as an archive of original artwork, manuscripts, and ephemera. We've, materials on screen are the dummy for Aliki's My Five Senses, original artwork for Angela Dominguez and Maria Had a Little Llama, the original cover art for Once on a Time by Catherine Milhouse, and original art by Marguerite D'Angeli for Bright April, which was set in Philadelphia. Our mission is to promote the history, study, and development of children's literature, and we engage the public about the importance of children's literature in history and culture, and we expand the knowledge base of our patrons through research support and by fostering new ideas through displays and exhibitions. You can learn more about the collection by visiting us at freelibrary.org/CLRC. So thank you for putting up with our housekeeping bit. Now, normally when we do a webinar, we do a quick introduction and then we kind of dive into the object of interest. And this one, it feels a little strange for me because I have to give some personal information that I think will help contextualize why we're talking about this today. So the two important things that you need to know about me. The first one is that when I was a child, up until about the age of 8, I had one career goal. It was not librarian. It was Muppeteer. That is the first Christmas ornament that I was gifted. It still goes on my tree every year. And that is a picture of me performing in my living room with a homemade puppet theater that was built for me. And I still own both of those marionettes that you see me engaging with. So yes, everything Muppet or puppet related, I am interested in. There's more Muppet related memorabilia in this room than I feel comfortable admitting in a public forum. The other relevant bit of information I should mention is that I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I think while Karen, you and I can agree that Pittsburgh is the best city in the entire world, the key takeaway that we need to make from this presentation is that it is home to the Heinz factory. And the Heinz factory is famous for its pickles that were popularized thanks to their pickle pins. I have a QR code on the screen, and this is a complete tangent, but I need to give a shout out to the Heinz History Center and their amazing blog post on the history of the pickle pin. Please stick with me in this presentation because we're going to talk about fun things, but maybe come back and scan that QR code and take a look at their blog post because it is really excellently written and they deserve a shout out. The reason this is all relevant is because years before I was born, friends of my parents gifted them a papier-mâché and cloth marionette that lived his best life in our house. I loved Muppets, I loved him. We were from Pittsburgh, and as a result, we named the marionette Mr. Pickle. So without further ado, there is Mr. Pickle. He was not a marionette that I ever played with because he didn't have all of his strings and things. And I will say, I think sometimes you choose your profession and sometimes your profession chooses you. And for me, it's the latter in special collections, because even as a child, I knew he was something I couldn't play with. I couldn't really touch and engage with him because he was special. He needed to be kept safe. He had a history. You don't have a face like that and not have, seen some things. Things I did know about him were that he lived in a wooden bowl in our second floor hallway. And we knew he was somehow vaguely connected to the WPA, or the Works Progress Administration. Let's take a closer look at him. Oh, he's so beautiful. Mr. Pickle happily lived in my parents' house, but he kind of re-entered my life when Karen was pitching the idea for the exhibition, We Are What We Eat. When we go into these kind of meetings, we have discussions with our colleagues, and everyone talks about objects that either are in their collections or that they know about that could relate to the topic. And I guess Karen, I did a great job of, oops, I guess I did a great job of talking up Mr. Pickle. The next time my parents came to visit, he came along for the car ride. And we were all surprised when you included him in the exhibition. And I was delighted. But I was also very apprehensive because now that meant that since he was kind of under my umbrella, as a good colleague, it meant that I had to find out as much information about him as I could so that you would have the ability to write the best narrative for the exhibition. And that was like, oh goodness, what have I signed myself up for? And the answer is diving into the rich, wonderful, and decidedly odd history of the Pennsylvania Museum Extension Project. So let's talk a little bit about Mr. Pickle's background. Um, we originally located a little bit of information about him in our collection in the statewide Museum Extension Project catalog, number 3, which was produced in the 1940s, probably 1940, circa. The catalog talks a little bit about all the projects that the Museum Extension Project itself were overseeing. And the Museum Extension Project was designed so that artisans and people who weren't artisans but wanted to learn skills could work for the government to create educational components for schools, community centers, libraries, museums, etc. And these objects will be sent out in trunks and will be shared so that different communities could have access to them. On page 48, we find their information about the marionette and puppetry collection. And we see that they've described this as older than history is the use of figurines to represent human beings, their emotions and their frailties, and the tragic and comic aspects of human life. Today, it is recognized that marionettes and puppets form an excellent supplementary medium of instruction, and their popularity is increasing in proportion as it becomes possible to correlate them in an interesting manner to their regular schoolwork. These character figurines are well made, and they offer as good examples of construction and characterization, which may provide useful to schools interested in this type of work. And then later on page 49, we find a candidate of where Mr. Pickle fits in. It is part of the play The Magic Basket, a food health play. And we see there the description that Christopher, oh, meant to be, he's a heartbroken, puny little boy. He cries himself to sleep because he cannot take part in the athletics with his friends. While asleep, he dreams that Rococo, a festive clown, shows him how he can be strong and healthy by eating wholesome foods. After hearing the little songs and seeing the dancing, which the basket people, representing the good foods, perform for him, he resolves to follow their advice and eat only those foods which will make him strong and healthy. The play ends with an impressive ballet of all characters involved. It sounds like a fever dream, doesn't it? um, it's it's weird. Yeah. Don't worry, it's gonna get a lot weirder. We're just scratching the surface. Because once we found the name of the play, it was fairly easy to find examples of the play's script online. The Bynes Museum of the Modern Book, which is in Broward County, Florida, has 2 copies, one of which is available digitally. It was there that I discovered that Mr. Pickle's stage name is Cucumber. And I was surprised to learn that he was not one of the helpful vegetables. He is instead one of a pair of tempting imps alongside a green banana. So there is our indicator that he's not one of our friends. And it is, I'll admit, it is a small part, but I think as Mr. Pickle would say, there are no small parts, just gherkins. Here's the page of the script that you can see what he has to say. So Rococo the clown says, "Christopher, those foods are indeed your friends." And there's,
Rawr!
thank you, sudden roaring noise. Theater curator. Rococo responds, "What's that?"
Rawr!
"The tempting trolls."
Imps, man. Read the script. Trolls is later.
Oh, excuse me. The tempting imps. My apologies. The tempting imps. I went off book.
I'm right. Wait, Anyway,
Yeah.
so green banana, green cucumber, each laughing diabolically enter. Do you like us? Eat me, banana, so I'm hard and green. I'm Mr. Cucumber. I dare you to try me. I'll give you the tummy ache. And then together, because I can't do both voices at the same time. Christopher, you like us, don't you? We can give you pleasure, serve your delights, serve you delicate taste. This script, I will just, as in a role, there are some choices. People made some choices in how these things are worded.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
not winning a Tony or a BAFTA or anything.
No. And you will see, on this page, clearly there were people who were making edits on the fly as they were using it. Rococo, responds to this. No, you won't tempt our friend Christopher. What do we do to them, boys? And then, the lights flicker, and all of the characters who are on stage at that point chase them away, and the imps disappear. The green banana bit, I understand, right? Because an unripe banana has higher tannin levels and therefore contains more fiber. So it can cause stomach discomfort. But I maybe it was like growing up under the umbrella Big Heinz, I never heard that cucumbers would do the same. But in searching, I did find out that there is a chemical in cucumber and pickle skin that can potentially cause some people to experience stomach discomfort. Uh, the history, though, of the magic basket was much more complicated than the mystery of why a banana and a cucumber. Um, so as I mentioned, the Museum Extension Project would hire people to create these things, including writers. There are many scripts that were written for plays that were performed under Museum Extension Project or the Federal Theater Project. And based on the plot and storyline, I assumed that this was one of those. The plot is odd, the characters, clown, food, everything is unexpected, and as we comment, the dialogue, it doesn't it doesn't exactly sparkle. Karen, is there a theater term for that?
Um, uh, no, but if I will say if I was writing the review of the show, I would probably say that, the show has a message and it
Mhm.
conveys that message.
Yes, yes,
Um,
it conveys a message. Um, it's interesting. While we were searching for this and trying to find a copy of the script, it did though uncover a much more complex history. Because while I was, I'm gonna put Mr. Pickle back up while we're talking. Sorry, Cucumber back up while we're talking. While I was searching for an original copy of the script itself to add to our collections, I found references to the Magic Basket play, a health play, in books that were printed in the 1920s. I thought, how is that possible? The Museum Extension Project itself was founded in 1935. So how are we going back, over a decade in some cases to a play? And the answer came in, well, the beginning of the answer came in the 1929 edition of a book entitled Our Health Habits. This was a book that was created and dedicated to adding lesson plans about hygiene to the curriculum of public schools. And in the book, the section on lessons for for students in grade 5 includes an expanded version of the Magic Basket. Christopher and Rococo are the same, but in this case, the imps are called tempting trolls, which is where that came up. And it's not just the banana and the cucumber, they're composed of chewing gum and coffee. Cucumber and pickle are there. And although it's not in the actual character list, banana is not listed, but he is in the play itself, although this time he is self-described as yellow. Um, yeah, so I think we'll get into a little bit of this. I don't see exactly where it started, but Christopher is talking to an egg and talking about how much he likes you. And then he says something like, I like all of you. The things you tell me are so simple that I'm ashamed to be a weakling. And that's when the tempting trolls rush onto the screen and all the characters say, the trolls, the trolls. Karen, do you mind?
I mean, I do, but I'll do it. um, do you like us? And then here's a point where various foods start talking. in what is supposed to be, and I apologize for my stepping in and commentating as I'm supposed to be doing it. What is supposed to be some sort of like rhymed rhythmic sequence, but the rhythm doesn't work. So apologies. Um, Gumdrops, lollipops, chocolates, and licorice, peppermint, taffy, and sweet rich creams. Black, strong coffee, choose me for your breakfast. I will dull your memory and drug it with my dreams. Chippy chewing gum, I'm a vulgar fellow. Eat me banana, see, I'm hard and yellow. I dare you to try, Mr. Cucumber Q. I'll give you a tummy ache. Pickle me too.
Yeah.
Christopher, you like us, don't you? Here's what we can give you pleasant, delicate taste. They pull at him and try and get him.
And
And
the
the
basket
basket people
people
try to
stand
protect him.
around protecting him. And I don't think I mentioned this. This was not written for marionettes. This was written for children themselves to act out. So there's a little bit more physicality. Christopher screams, help, Rococo, help. I do like them, but I like your people too. And, it goes on. And Rococo delivers the message of, you must choose. The tempting trolls bring you delight soon forgotten. They cannot make you an athlete as the basket people can. Choose. And Christopher, of course, chooses the basket people because they want to be strong. He wants his friends. I'm not going to make you keep doing this, Karen. I promise. Thank you. I will say that the play kind of expands out them leaving because in this case they kind of walk off in a huff and once again deliver part of their message. Coffee is going to find a child that is he considers stupid because it's dulling its wits. Candy goes off to spoil a girl's complexion, and the cucumber and I suppose companions of Pickle and Banana go off to ruin the digestion of a greedy lad. Um, so this was interesting to find. It was really a surprise to see that this was not written specifically for the WPA. And there were some great hints in this text box that we could pull from. So I pulled out some areas here. They describe Rococo as having crosses on his suit, and the magic basket has a huge red cross on it. And later, at the very end, if you read the notes at the very end, they mention that this was credited to the American Red Cross. And once we had that, um, I was able to kind of start expanding our search to find a little bit more about the history of the play. Um, and it was great. There was a whole world now that we had that little bit of extra phrasing in there that opened things up. So in 1927, the American Junior Red Cross newsletter featured a supplement for teachers. And in there was an ad stating that teachers could copy a mimeographed copy of the play from National Red Cross headquarters. And then I really struck gold myself. The next year in 1928, there was another Junior Red Cross newsletter where the play was performed at their annual state conference of Red Cross chapters, and they had a picture of children dressed up in character. We can see Rococo sitting in front in the Red Cross outfit. Soap is behind him. I don't I think the one on the end is toothpaste. I can't see on my screen the way that it's set
Were
right
they
now.
were they saying you should eat soap?
No, that's a great question. So they also in the expanded version of the play, soap and toothbrush were included to talk about general hygiene. So it wasn't just eating foods, it was also what you can do to improve your body. They were doubling down hard on the health benefits in the play itself. Um, went searching a little bit further back, and in 1922, uh, we found an article from the Child Welfare magazine. I didn't include a picture of the cover because it wasn't very great. There's just the sampling from the article itself. But in this one, they made mention that the original play was published in 1915 when the National Tuberculosis Association produced 15 health-based plays to better teach children and families the value of good hygiene. The Magic Basket was later included in a list of plays that were promoted by the National Health Council. And The note suggests that even though it was written by the Tuberculosis Association, it was written in support of the Red Cross. It was a little vague, and there was still some unpicking that had to be done. But this did kind of give a little bit more context to Rococo, and it helped make sense as to why a clown is leading a boy into the woods to show him his basket. It was a different time. There were different things happened. Health clowns were used by health-centric humanitarian organizations like the National Tuberculosis Association and the American Red Cross in the first half of the 20th century to teach children, but also to teach their families, their caregivers, about the importance of better hygiene. This was not, we're lucky. This is a universally understood concept today. It was something that they were still having to educate people about then. So Rococo's inclusion in the story was not as unusual as I'm making it seem today. And we were able to find some other health clown examples at the Library of Congress. We have an image of a health clown named Cho-Cho on the left, and on the right, there's a blow up of a similarly named health clown named Rocco or Rocco, ROCO, at the 1921 Nebraska State Fair. Haven't been able to find out if Rococo was any type of specific clown or just a name they chose that was similar to other health clowns that were going around at the time. Um, the Child Welfare magazine also introduced the clue of the National Health Council, and that was very useful because it helped me find another article that was written in a 1923 issue of Public Health Nurse. And this was written by James A. Toby, who was a member of the council. And Toby was listed as, he listed 8 or 9 plays that were written specifically for uh, promoting health in schools. The frustrating thing here, I think it was 10, because 9 of them all listed an individual author, but the Magic Basket did not. It listed that the creator was a Northern Division of the American Red Cross based in Minneapolis. So I think it implies that either the author wanted to remain anonymous or the play was written by a group of individuals that were associated in this branch. And that's as far back. I think that's as close as we can get to finding the actual history. A little further away from Pennsylvania than expected, although obviously transformed by the Museum Extension Project of Pennsylvania to make it a little more localized. While we were researching the history, I was also very lucky because I stumbled across 2 marionettes that were available for purchase, and the Free Library is now in possession of the carrot marionette and what we assume is a tomato marionette, and I'll get into that a little bit more later on. And then some fate was smiling upon me because a few weeks later we were able to find the egg marionette and also the milk bottle marionette. So our collection was growing. We
The egg
also,
is so wrong. The egg is so wrong. I'm sorry. I just to chime in, the day these showed up at the library, Chris called me and he was like, "You need to come downstairs," because we were not working at the same office at the time. He's like, "You need to come downstairs and see these." And I did, and he took the cover of the box off and he showed me the milk bottle, and I was like, "Okay, that's fine." And then he showed me the egg, and I nearly had to leave the room. That picture does not do justice to how disturbing this thing is. It should not be for children. Anyway, continue.
I'm so sorry. Again, it's called Scary Clowns. You get what you sign up for with this. Um, we also were able, during this time period, I found a near fine edition of the Puppeteer's Handbook. And this was a book that was produced by the Pennsylvania Museum Extension Project, and it was used to help train performers on both the language and the techniques they would need to master puppetry and making the shows that were being sent out more engaging and more exciting for people in the audience to help get the messages of the stories relayed to the young audience members, but also parents, caregivers, etc. Um, I wanted this book to in our collection because I really feel passionately that books like these need to remain publicly available. And it was just it's a fantastic resource to include in our growing collection of books on the WPA in Pennsylvania. I would have bought it anyway for the collection, but you know, I was surprised when we were opening it up and looking at it because inside we found illustrations of the characters from the Magic Basket. The carrot, the tomato, and the milk bottle are all listed and illustrated, and they are designed to be used in what the booklet calls special productions. Um, I'll do a quick aside to mention that if you come to see We Are What We Eat, there is a table of free takeaways that Karen has provided, which include recipe booklets, pins, um, bookmarks that feature conversion charts for how many teaspoons are in a cup and things like that. And there also are coloring sheets for people of any age of some of the characters that you see here. So please come visit, do a coloring sheet. The book also had another surprise for me because earlier there was an image of a clown marionette. The clown was not identified as Rococo, so I didn't want to make any assumptions, but it gave me an idea of design and size and scale, and that helped me immeasurably because when I was looking, I stumbled across an article from the 1931 uh, a 1931 issue of the Pittsburgh Press, which was a local newspaper in Pittsburgh, and they featured some images of the clown in action. And as you can see, we have the clown with some puppets on the left, but then on the right, I've done a blow up, you see an image of the clown with the egg. And we have a general sense now of what the clown looks like. And I say general sense because that's important. If you look closely at the picture, you're looking at it, you may see that parts of it look like a photograph and parts of it look like a drawing. The reason for that was a lot of times when they were publishing pictures in a paper, they knew that the transfer of a black and white photograph on newsprint wouldn't always capture all the details, so they would draw in pencil or in ink on a photograph, and that is what would be copied. Um, Depending on who was drawing, not all the details always match up. They would, sketch things out, and it would depend on the skill of the person illustrating. But there's still enough there that we had an idea of like what to look for, and I could see, okay, this clown was used with the egg. The clown from the book does kind of match. And that gave me a chance to really dive in and start looking. And I found an old auction catalog that featured uh, the clown with some carrots and with an egg and a character of a little boy puppet. Um, I'm not going on record as saying that that is the Christopher puppet. It is a marionette of a boy. He could be related. It seems likely with the characters he's surrounded by. But we also have to acknowledge that in the foreground of the picture on the left, there is a pterodactyl marionette. So it's not as bonkers as the Magic Basket is. They did not include dinosaurs or pterodactyls. So like he may not actually be part of this set. Um, You'll also notice if you're paying very close attention, the clothing on this clown with his floral pattern doesn't match the clothing on this clown who's wearing polka dots. And that's not really that much of an issue. The Museum Extension Project was incredibly concerned about waste. So they would recycle materials, they would reuse things, they would change things. If you look at the image of the three carrots, the material they use for their arms and legs, it's all different types of green. So I am not surprised to see that there were some clowns that were different outfits, just based on the fabric they had available. Seeing this clown, though, and seeing the design uh, was very useful because the next marionette that I picked up for the collection was this handsome fellow who looks a little rough and a little worn, but that's okay. We'll talk about that in a moment. But he meets the height proportions of the other marionettes. So even if he was not a clown that was used with the magic basket, if he was included in another marionette play that featured clowns, I'm pretty confident saying that he's of the same size and shape and scale to relate to these characters. Um, he unfortunately was not camera ready for the exhibition. Some of the other ones weren't as well. Uh, by the way, I'll mention since I'm talking about changes in clothing and fabric, I said earlier that I think we have a tomato. And the reason for that is because our tomato is a little different than the other tomatoes that I've seen. So I have our possible tomato on the left, and I have a tomato puppet from the Broward County Spines Museum on the right. And the faces are very similar, but the colors are different. And you'll notice their tomato has a little tuft of greenery at the top, and ours does not. Um, I don't quite know what to do with the greenery. The colors in the fabric make sense because again, they're using whatever fabric's on hand. Same thing with paint. They wanted the characters to look different. They may have had different molds for tomatoes, and they have one molded bit of paper mache for the face, and we have a different one. There was a real uh, focus in the museum extension project that they wanted their puppets to not look mass produced. Um, I have a quote from the Museum Extension Project's one of their booklets, and I love it because it says, "Great pains were taken in the modeling of the puppets to avoid any suggestion of the burlesque exemplified in the older Punch and Judy shows." So the puppeteer makers at that time, they definitely had a looking down on a street performer, and they wanted their puppets to have variety and to look handmade. So until I learn something else, we're calling this a tomato, but it is definitely there's an unseen asterisk after the tomato every time you may see it listed in the future. Um,
Before we knew tomato, or
sure.
before we had the script, to know that a pumpkin was not included, I was 1,000% team pumpkin on this thing.
Yeah, yeah, I was too. And I have to say, I'm still thinking that there may have been a play where this could potentially be related, although the hands and the feet designs match, and the hands and the feet of the other vegetables seem consistent across vegetable designs. So I'm not sure. It's an interesting question, isn't it, as to what it could be. Uh, Our these were found before the exhibition opened, but they were not as stage ready as Mr. Pickle was. So to show you an example, two images of the same puppet. This was the milk bottle on the left is as he was when we received him, and the milk bottle on the right is what he looks like now. I will stress that we don't repaint materials. I have seen auction listings where someone has tried to improve these puppets by painting them, and it's even more terrifying than what than the way they may look. One of our techs in our collection care department painstakingly dry cleaned this. So what you're seeing is just a very slow erasure of dirt, a refreshing of the fabric. If one of the objects has a chip, they will fill that in so it doesn't cause greater damage. And if there's a large chip or something's missing, they may in paint. So they will match colors so you're not distracted by the damage, but the entire piece itself has not been painted. It has been cleaned. Um, Looking at this, I am very grateful for Meg's work. She's doing a beautiful job, but I'm also very excited to see what our final cast of characters looks like when they've all been refreshed and improved. Uh, Thank you for bearing with this very, very long discussion of the puppets. If you've stuck with us, I will show you a little behind the scenes footage as well. So you have Mr. Pickle as he is on display in We Are What We Eat. Um, a question that I have had asked by staff members, I'm sure Karen on your tours you may have gotten it also, is he supported by his strings? And the answer is no, he is not. We didn't feel comfortable that he could be up at his age for 6 months or 5 months, where the strings are supporting the paper mache. So if you're in the exhibition looking, if you look behind him, he has a custom-made brass mount that is supporting his body. The only place where there is any pressure is on the hands. And that's because it is the cloth is in great shape, and we felt that those could bear the weight because they're surprisingly light. So that is our discussion of scary clowns and dancing vegetables. Being a library nerd, I have some pages for you of citations that you may have seen across the slides. At some point, this will be going up on our blog, so if you want to learn more, I'll have those all listed there. But otherwise, thank you everyone for hanging out with us today, hearing some scripts that have been read, and looking at some scary clowns and dancing vegetables.
Didn't realize you were getting brunch and a show when signing up for for this particular webinar. Um,
No.
so I will just asterisk to the very beginning. I will not lump myself in and declaring Pittsburgh somehow the best city in the world. Is it a great city? Sure. Is it the best city? I mean, it's not my city, so we'll just put that at there. All right. So one of the questions we've got is are there other WP items in the collections
Oh,
besides the puppets?
yeah, there are. So, the WPA, specifically Museum Extension Project, is really interesting because it's probably one of the few things that crosses all of our special collections. Obviously, things Philadelphia related also cross, but for WPA, we have a lot of material. I can speak for the Children's Lit collection. We have some puppets, we have some children's books, we have model plaster houses that were made to show off architecture. We have some weavings that were made to show off colonial designs. Um, in the print and picture collection, there are a lot of posters that were designed as advertisements. There are posters in Children's Lit also. Map collection has books that feature maps in it. Rare Books also has some material. Karen, what do you have in theater?
So theater, we've got some of the material from the Federal Theater Project, including we have some playbills. We have a couple of scripts, not original scripts, but as they were reprinted later. We have a couple of stage photos, which are pretty neat, including some things that were for the Living newspaper, which was a whole thing, but I won't get into the details of that. If you're interested, you can always contact us and we can connect you with that. Also, there was an exhibition a couple of years ago called For the Greatest Number, also done in the Dietrich Gallery. So we cycle through exhibitions they change about every 6 months. So they're usually up for 5 months. We're sort of dark for a month as we change over the gallery, and then it opens again. So that was focused on the WPA and all sort of its various extensions. So there's information on the website, on the Free Library website, if you sort of go back in exhibitions about that. If you're interested in learning more about what that looked like, although you cannot see it anymore because it has been replaced now a couple of times over with different shows. All right, so can I find these in the catalog?
Oh, okay, it's a great question. So the answer is sort of. If it is a book, there's a chance that it is in our electronic catalog. Um, and I say a chance, not to be a jerk, but because historically the cataloging of circulating materials took precedence when transferring to the electronic catalog. There is probably a card catalog in one of our special collections that has it. So the objects, depending on the collection, there are various finding aids that could be used. Your best bet, though, I will say, is to visit us at freelibrary.org/special collections. You can pick any special collection and get to the email or telephone number and email us, send us a call, and say, I'm interested in seeing more. We love it when people do that. It is one of the best parts of the job. Your question can be as specific as I would like to see this object, or it could be as vague as I would like to see some cool stuff related to X. We are happy to handle both. The only time that we cannot show you an object is if it is so fragile that by showing it, it will damage the item more, or if it is something that has recently been on exhibition and is maybe on light rest or maybe in our collection care area. And in a case like that, we'll talk to you about it and we'll try our best to find a workaround if that's a facsimile or something of a similar object that can be shown off.
And I'll say that goes across the board pretty much for all the special collections.
Yes.
So
And
yeah.
please don't feel you need to email every single one of us for that. I mean, you can if you want to, that's fine. But if one of us gets a question, we're talking all the time and we'll coordinate getting together to show you things.
Do you have puppets other that aren't from the WPA? Like, are there other puppets?
I have a few that have come about because they were related to various children's programming. The only one of a puppet in my actual puppet in my collection that I can think of is there was a phonics program designed in the 1960s that lasted through 2019, 2020 called The Letter People. And one of them was recently on display. It wasn't a puppet, it was an inflatable character called a Huggable. Those were phased out the Huggables were phased out, I want to say, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they were replaced with hand puppets. We don't have all of the letter people, but I tried to, in collecting the phonics set, I purchased one huggable letter, and that happened to be Miss U and her Upsy Daisy umbrella.
I love
So
the Litter People. They were periodically the theme song runs through my head. It lives there rent free. Just pops up every once in a while.
it before I will say when we have letter people material on display, in special collections, we always don't have the immediate satisfaction of knowing that we're making a difference. In the circulating collections, if you're answering questions and people are doing immediate things, you kind of get that immediate thrill of like, I've helped a child write a report, or I've helped connect someone to a resource. In special collections, it happens, but not as regularly. And there was this small Miss U was on display in a case in the hallway, and outside of the printed picture collection, there were a group of us inside working, and I'm so glad I had colleagues there who would witness this. We heard the loudest scream in the world, and a man came running in who was in his 30s, and he was like, I remember that as a kid. And it justified the entire job. I am still riding the waves of that. So, sir, whoever you are, if you're ever watching this, thank you. I am still basking in that experience.
Justified purchase for the collection.
Exactly. Means I need to buy all the other letters now, right?
Absolutely. It's going to go into your annual report, be like, look, this is interaction. This is why we do this.
Yes.
All right. It looks like this is, I think, the last question I have that I see, which is wanting to see the Muppet memorabilia that you mentioned at the beginning, which you opened the door on this, man.
I did open the door on that. Okay.
You do realize you should probably not if people want to see it big size.
Big size. Yeah. No, I understand.
Maybe
Okay.
not share the screen so that people can see it if you hold stuff up.
I will say that if I don't have a favorite piece, but my goal in Muppet memorabilia is very specific. I don't like to collect anything after 1985 or 86 in that general area. I don't want modern Muppet stuff. I want some of the original things. I can't my favorite thing right now is I bought a copy of the Great Muppet Caper board game, which is three-dimensional and takes forever to set up. That's in the other room. I'm not grabbing that. On my desk, I have a series of Muppet figurines that were stick puppets. So they have little holes in their back, and there's a little piece of plastic that will go in there, and you can make them jump around and dance. And they hang out and live there and guide my work at home.
Nice.
Yeah.
If I had thought about it, I have a couple of the glasses from either McDonald's or Burger King of
Mm.
the Great Muppet Caper. They are delightful and sit next to my glasses that are my Star Wars ones. I'm a little like, not that I'm headed to Burger King or McDonald's all that often at this juncture in my life, but um which is not to say anything in particular other than, they don't have glasses that I can buy anymore. Maybe if they were making commemorative glasses on a regular, they would get more money from me, because I do like French fries. So
Pay attention,
um,
Burger King.
I will come in and buy glasses and French fries.
And on that note,
On that
uh,
note, thank you everybody for
thank
coming
you.
in. And do come see, if you're local or anywhere nearby, come see the exhibition. You can also contact us if you want to just see more information about the show at freelibrary.org/eat, EAT. And then, as Chris mentioned, freelibrary.org/special collections, and you can reach all of us. And I will let Chris do his final sign off.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for hanging out. Again, I hope you'll come in and see the materials that are available at the library. Thank you for hanging out with us, and I apologize to any person who loves puppets but is terrified of clowns and had to put up with this. So if you suffer from what's the phobia of clowns?
Oh man, we looked it up.
We looked it
What was
up
it?
because we were like, this gonna come up. Oh,
Coulrophobia.
Colrophobia. Yes. So if you stuck with us and have colrophobia, email us and let us know. Karen will send you a pin. Um, just
I will.
just because. But thank you all. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.